This week, our video Bible study will focus on the book of Exodus, chapter 14, the crossing of the Red Sea. Now, I have fond memories as a kid on Palm Sunday watching on television the timeless classic, The Ten Commandments. The scene depicting the crossing of the Red Sea was my favorite, and probably the most iconic of the whole film. Now, before we dive into our reflection on the chapter, it's important for us to cover the major players and why they're important. Now, Moses is really the only major player in this scene and for the majority of the book of Exodus. Now, Moses enters the scene roughly 280 years after Joseph and his brothers enter Egypt. And we covered their story in our last video. Because 2 centuries have passed, the new Pharaoh in town doesn't view the Hebrews with the same amount of respect as the Pharaoh who trusted Joseph and his brothers did. In fact, the Pharaoh leading Egypt now, at the time of the Exodus, sees the Hebrews as a threat because they're starting to outnumber the Egyptians. And because of this fear that Pharaoh could be run out of town by his workers, he puts the Hebrews into more extreme slavery. And he starts to murder all the baby boys to prevent the Hebrews from continuing to expand in their numbers. Now, Moses' mother decides to spare her son's life and places him in a basket and sends him down the Nile River in hopes a new family will find him and take care of him. Well, the baby doesn't make it too far, and he's discovered by Pharaoh's daughter, and she decides to keep him and raise him in the palace. Eventually, Moses grows up, and he knows that he isn't an Egyptian, but he's grateful to his adopted mother and to Pharaoh for taking him in. One day, Moses sees an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew, and while Moses tries to stop the Egyptian, he accidentally kills him. Now, out of fear Pharaoh would find out, Moses flees to Midian. He finds a nice Hebrew girl and settles down. Time passes and God speaks to Moses in the famous burning bush, where God asks Moses to free his chosen people from slavery and bring them into the land promised to Abraham and his descendants. We'll pick it up from here in our next video. My suggestion is to read this exciting story in the book of Exodus. It really is an exciting read, not so much like the soap operas we've witnessed in the last 2 series, but very exciting nonetheless.